Hello my friends, my name is Maltanen. Welcome to this short presentation of my very useful tool that I've designed for myself and now I've decided to share it with the rest of you guys, called Cuber. Now the main purpose of the Cuber is to create 3D boxes inside of After Effects. And yes, I know what you're thinking, we already have a dozen scripts that do that, so why do we need another one? Well, this tutorial is designed exactly to answer that question. Why the hell does After Effects world need another make a box tutorial? And I've got three very good reasons for that. Number one, it's designed by me, okay? So if you've seen my previous stuff, then you know there must be something extra. If you've seen either my tutorials or you've attended my live sessions or saw my trainings, then you know there must be something cool hidden in that script. Reason number two, it has the best user interface ever designed for any After Effects script, ever. And that is no user interface. Actually, it sort of has a user interface, but the user interface that we will be using is the user interface of After Effects itself. I thought that giving you a bunch of dialog boxes asking you totally unnecessary and irrelevant questions is pointless. So I decided the script should have the minimum amount of input from your end and just allow you to reshape your boxes really quickly using After Effects interface. Why should we reinvent something that has thousands of man hours put into it? And the reason number three, which is the result of two previous reasons, is that it's extremely useful and fun to use. So let me just show you. I created the script because I need a 3D box very often. When I'm doing motion graphics like TV ads or commercials, I need to put a pack shot of some kind and I just need to add a little bit of depth to my objects. So here's a typical scenario. We've got some background, we've got some nice type. Amazing product. Let's just do it really roughly right now. I don't usually design using spacebar, but what the hell, let's just keep it simple for this tutorial. Let's just add a pack shot over here, which is the front cover of my training, which you can get at motionworks.com.au or motionworks.net. So naturally I encourage you to take a look at that and ideally just buy it. So this is a typical scenario. We have this flat looking DVD cover and what we usually do is we switch on the 3D switch and we just rotate it just a tiny bit to give it some perspective, maybe scale it down and we put it like that, and then we sort of miss a little bit of 3D depth in this. So how could we fix this? This is exactly what 3D Box is designed to do. However, instead of just going ahead and clicking on the 3D Box button, which I've got over here in my FT toolbar, by the way, it's a great script which you can also get here at aescripts.com. It allows you to create your custom toolbars, so I highly recommend it. Let's get back to the point. Instead of just clicking this, I like to keep my 3D things inside of pre-comps, and this is why. Let me just go ahead and pre-comp this, just like that, clicking Ctrl-Shift-C, and I'm going to leave all attributes because I don't want to distort or keep my distortion on the texture. I just want the texture to be in its own composition. So I'm going to just say 3D MILG cover. Okay, and I'm going to double click here to open up my composition with just this texture. So the only thing that I need to do right now is to click the 3D box which launches my script, and this is all the user interface you will ever see. It just asks you about the depth of the cube you want to create. Let's just leave it at 100, why not? Click OK and we can go back to our final composition, and of course right now we still see that this is flat, but all that we have to do is to simply collapse transformations, and there you go, we've got a nice 3D looking box. Well, It's not yet really nice because we've got no shading on the box naturally, but we can simply change that by either adding some lights or changing the material properties inside of this comp, or just simply going ahead and changing the color of the solid. Something that is worth pointing out is that the script creates only one additional solid in your whole project. So you've got this wall. I've got two because I've obviously tried it out before I recorded it. So I've got two. However, you can see that this one is used 5 times. So these are the 5 layers. It's a small thing, but it does pay off in the performance of your whole project. And what's more interesting is that you can just simply click on this layer and click Ctrl-Shift-Y if you're on Windows, and we can just change the color of this solid by checking Affect All Layers that use this solid. And right now I can just grab my pick whip and pick a color that corresponds to the design of my box, which would be maybe something like this, or maybe this color. No, I don't like this. Maybe something from here. And instantly we've got more interesting look in our final composition. A good tip to make this look even more interesting is to simply maybe add a ramp effect to it. We can just make sure we've got a proper wall selected. By proper, I mean the one that we can actually see. And we can now just do the same trick with the colors. Maybe just choose this color and maybe a little bit lighter color over here. Orangey light, like so, or maybe something going into a different area. That's really all that you have to do. And having that done, you can just simply copy this over and paste it to all the additional layers. It's very simple, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to, right? This is just to just improve the look if the front face is everything you can work with. However, if you do have more stuff like this side, for example, and the back, you can actually create a 3D box that will look exactly as your CD or DVD case. So let me just show you how to do that. We can of course reset it, so we can start from scratch, not to confuse you. So let me just reset everything. This is still a 3D layer. By the way, it doesn't have to be. We can turn it off and the script will take care of that for us. So it's really bulletproof. You don't have to have any special setup before you apply it. You just select your layer and click Create 3D Box. The thing that I love about it, and that's the pure reason why I created it, is that it only asks you for the depth of the cube instead of asking you each time how wide and how tall it should be. It just assumes that if I have this layer selected, then those are the dimensions that we should use, and the only dimension missing is the depth. So since I do have the front, the back, and the side, I just need to check what width is the side of my cube. Therefore, when I click this button, I will just put the 80 pixels inside the input box. So I'm just putting 80 in here, and now this has the proper size. However, it's still missing the textures. Here's another great thing about the design of this script. As you can see, all of these layers are collapsed, even though there are no pre-comps or anything like that. They're just collapsed. Why is that? The reason is that each of these solids is always 100 pixels by 100 pixels. So even if for some reason you do not know how big you want your cube to make, you can just start off by creating a cube that is 100 by 100 pixels and then just scale it in every direction, and it will always be crisp and sharp and looking good. So if you take a look at this right now, all the scale properties are modified to match the size of my box. So the X, the Y, and the Z dimensions. So if we have textures that we wish to replace, we should just simply select all the scales, right click, and reset. And that way the layers stay in the correct position, but they can be now easily replaced just by alt dragging our footage. So I just have to locate the sides. So these are these two sides. I'm just clicking, grabbing the milk side JPEG file and alt dragging it on top of this comp, and there you go, I've got my sides. So that's pretty much it. I can actually lose the top and the bottom because we never get to see it anyway, and therefore here I have my beautiful three-dimensional case. Of course I'm missing the back wall, so this is it. I just need to alt drag it in here as well, and right now, as you can see, I've got a really nice and complete 3D box. It's great for doing pack shots, you know, simple like that, even from one single JPEG. Just adding this ramp effect really pays off. Okay, but I've got other examples prepared, of course, so let's just get rid of this milk cover, and let's just do something that is maybe a little bit more interesting. Here's another pack shot. Is this going to look okay? Here's green and this is orange, so we can just go ahead and maybe apply hue saturation to our background just to match it. And let's just do it like this and maybe decrease the saturation. Okay, that's fine. Or actually maybe we can use a complementary color like maybe bluish. That would be quite okay. So the same trick. Pre-comp it, leave all attributes in final, and then just simply go in and let's see what are the dimensions of my sides. It's 165, so I make sure my layer is selected and I click the cuber 165, click enter, and again I've got a nice three-dimensional box, basically the same scenario we just saw. So let's replace the walls by dragging the side, holding the alt key. Of course this time I forgot to reset the scale, but that's no biggie. We can just click the S key to reveal the scale properties, select them and click reset, and there we go. So selecting one of the layers, clicking Ctrl+Shift+Y, making sure that affect all layers that use this solid is selected. We will see that this change will take effect on 3 layers. That's perfect. We can choose one of the greens, hit OK, and go back to our final collapse transformations. We can turn on the 3D switch. We of course don't have to do it, but it kind of makes sense to do that. We can scale it down, move it over here, and rotate it just a tiny bit, and there we go. Pretty simple, pretty cool. So let me just show you something else. Here's a very simple crate JPEG. It's 256 by 256. It's a texture. So we can just go ahead and create a 3D box right inside of the comp. So I just dragged it to a make new comp button. We can call this 3D crate. And again, we're just clicking the 3D box 256. This time we can just reset the scale on every single thing. Of course, I remind you, you don't have to do that every time. This is just for the case where you have additional textures you want to put on the side, on the back, on the top, and on the bottom. Otherwise, you don't have to change the scale. You can just play with the color of the solid. So once I did that, and since I've got all my layers selected, I can just again simply drag the crate, holding the Alt over here, and there I go. Here's my beautiful three-dimensional crate. Pretty cool. And now of course I can put it inside of my comp. I don't know why I would do that, but it's a pretty cool thing to do anyway. So let's just put it over here. We can scale it down. We can create another one, put it over here. And of course they are aware of each other, so if you overlap them, for example, if we are going to hide this inside of this layer, is going to intersect with it like that. Therefore, the thing that you can do is to, for example, have a CD or a DVD coming out of the DVD box. You know what? Let's just replace this this box with our milk cover, and let's just do that. So I'm going to put my CD in here. I'm going to turn it into a 3D layer. I'm going to just copy all the transforms for this layer over to my CD. Therefore, I place it in the exact same spot. I can now just push it in just a tiny bit. I think I can actually scale it up like so, just so it doesn't get out of the box yet. We can do it like this, put it on the bottom, and now we can also parent it to our DVD cover. Therefore, if we move the cover, the CD will move with it, and we can just slide it out whenever we want. So position keyframe, 2 seconds forward. Let's just move the X value, and as you can see, this all works perfectly. So easy ease, maybe add some rotation to it. So pretty perfect. I actually think I would rather like it to stay inside like that. Yeah, that looks way better. So again, if I'm going to grab a 3D camera, which is missing from this comp at this point, you will see that this actually sits inside of this DVD box. So that's pretty cool. Let's get rid of this and this and this and this. We don't need it anymore. And yes, it still is an amazing product, even though we don't have any boxes or any DVD cases over here. Let me just show you something more interesting than that. We don't always have to use it with CG graphics. We can of course use it with photos, as you can see. I've got a couple of textures, actually a lot of textures that I've created to test this script out. I was actually building the script based on those textures. Let me just show you the original photos that I built this from. These are just taken with my iPhone. They're really crappy, as you can see. I've just photographed a laptop from every single angle I could. The perspective's changing, the light's changing, so you know, it's a crappy set of photos, but it does make for a pretty good three-dimensional laptop. That is essentially, if you think about it, just two 3D boxes. So let me show you how we can build something like that. Usually I like to build things from the front. So I will find body front, which is just this single file. And I will start building my 3D laptop from this layer. So I'm just gonna drag it to a make new comp button, and the only thing I'll have to do is to check how deep this should go. So let me just find a suitable JPEG, which would be body bottom, for example, and from that we can learn that it should be 700 pixels deep, because the front that you can see right here is right here at the bottom, right? Facing downwards, so we don't actually see it because it's, you know, it's a three-dimensional bottom of the laptop, so we don't see this part, but it's over here. So at this point we have to take a look at the height of this file. So I know I need to enter 700 pixels, so I make sure my layer is selected. That's all that I have to do, and I click the 3D box or multi-cuber or whatever you want to call it, this super amazing 3D box script, for example, and I enter 700 pixels, click OK, and I can switch to custom view, and already I have my three-dimensional, the base of my three-dimensional laptop. So the only thing left to do is what? You've guessed it. Since we are going to replace all of those solids with textures, we have to reset the scale, which again, I remind you, you don't have to do if you don't have the appropriate textures. And now we just need to replace them. So let's just see, this is the back, so let's grab a body back and just alt drag it. These are the walls, so we are going to use body side for this, alt dragging, click. Here's the top, so body top, and here's the bottom, so body bottom. Okay, and here is my three-dimensional bottom part of the laptop, which looks pretty good already. And I'm going to go back to the active camera, and I can just leave it like that. It doesn't, the size of the composition doesn't matter, because remember, this is going to be collapsed. However, it's pretty good to keep a sensible size of the composition, because you will be positioning this eventually somewhere. So it's good to keep it in a way that makes sense to you. So let's just call this 3D body, and now we can build a screen. So let's just grab screen front and do the exact same thing, put it into a new comp. We can see that it's a little bit shorter in height, but again, it will have the same depth, right? We don't even have to check that, but we can if we want to. Let's see, that's right, 700 pixels. So making sure that the layer is selected, clicking the button, 700, click OK, select layers, press S for scale, reset the scale, ping, like that. We can switch to custom view. We don't have to, but I just like to see my layers as I change them. And these are the sides, so I can just grab screen side, alt dragging, ping, jumps into place. Here's the back, so screen back, ping, jumps into place. Here's the top, so this is what we see when the laptop is closed, so screen top. That's right, and at the end we've got this screen bottom, so that's it. And by the way, since this is of course a screen right now, we can actually pre-compose this single layer if we like to, and just put some moving pictures on it, which I'm sure I'm gonna show you in a second. So we can leave it like that. And the great thing about this is that we can merge those two objects together. So this is my 3D screen, and now I'm going to create a composition that will be my 3D laptop. So take a look at this. I'm going to grab those two. This one is 70 pixels, this one is 25, so I am going to create a new composition that is 1000 pixels wide, and it's 70 plus 25 in height. That's exactly what I need. So clicking OK, and now I'm going to put the body inside. Just for convenience, take a look at this. I'm going to move the anchor point to the top, like that. I'm going to put the screen in, and for this I'm going to put the anchor point at the bottom, so 25 pixels. And now I can just move the whole thing up. And I don't even have to check if their position is correct, because I've just got the anchor point repositioned, so that's pretty cool. So the next thing to do is obviously clicking the 3D switch and clicking the collapse transformations, and check this one out. This is my 3D laptop. So I can now go to my final composition and put the 3D laptop in here, click the collapse transformation, click the 3D switch, and start maneuvering with my laptop. So just take a look at this. This is a fully three-dimensional laptop. And again, I know what you're thinking. We should probably make it so that it can open up. So yes, we are going to do this. And while we're doing that, we will also move its anchor point to the middle of the laptop, to the very middle of the laptop. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's a concept that I call relative positioning, and it's going to be discussed in more detail in my upcoming training, which is not yet released because it's still being recorded, but I am letting you know about it right now. It's going to be available on MotionWorks, and it's going to be called Making It Look Great Creative Breakdowns. So keep an eye out for that, and in the meantime, let me show you how to move this. So since this is a 3D layer, it has a three-dimensional anchor point. We know that the laptop is 700 pixels in depth, so we simply need to move the anchor point half of that. So 700 divided by 2, this will put the anchor point in the middle. And when we go back to our final composition, you will see that this anchor point moved. This may be a little bit confusing because it does not have anything directly to do with these anchor points. Remember that we are actually just moving three-dimensional layers as far as this composition is concerned. So that's what we're doing. That's the relative positioning in a nutshell, but you know, it needs probably some more explanations. But what we actually need to do, we actually need to do something more. We need to move this anchor point to 700 pixels and this one to 700 pixels as well, and we need to change the position, moving it back 350 pixels. So the result is exactly the same here on the screen. However, since the anchor point is placed at the back, the anchor point of those layers is placed right at their back, we can now grab the rotation parameter, and you've guessed it, we can just open the laptop up just like that. That's pretty darn cool. So let me just show you how that looks. Here's our three-dimensional laptop, and while we're at it, why not add a nice slider to control how the laptop works. So I'm just going to add a simple slider, put it on top of this layer, and call it open close. And I'm going to link my rotation to this parameter right here. So I'm gonna log this and I'll click over here and link it to open close, and that's it. I can now go back to my 3D laptop and I can change this expression. This is what was just generated by the pick whip, and I'm going to say clamp. That's a pretty useful expression that limits the amount of data being driven from the slider. So I'm going to say clamp it from -100 to 0. That means that whatever this value is, the rotation will never get values other than between -100 and 0. Actually, you know what? We are going to do this in a different way. We can remove the negative sign from here and just put it over here. That way, it's more intuitive to just drag the slider to the positive values and have the rotation work the other way. It's just better in my opinion. So we can go back to this composition. Let's just reset it and maybe just reset the whole thing. Transform reset. I'm going to reset the camera, or actually I can even get rid of it. And again, I can open up my laptop if I want to, just like that. I can scale it down and put it wherever I want. And just as a reminder, these are After Effects 3D layers. So they do work with lights, they do cast shadows, so you can add a nice three-dimensional floor over here, shine a light on it, and it will cast shadows just like any other three-dimensional layer. So I told you that we can put something on the screen over here, so let's just go ahead and do that. To do that, we need to go into the 3D screen. We need to look at the screen bottom, because that is the texture that we're interested in, as you can see. And I'm going to pre-compose it. So Ctrl-Shift-C on Windows, leave all attributes, and I'm going to say screen, and double click over here, and I can just duplicate this layer, and I can just put something on top of this. Maybe let's put our cool background. Just like that. We're going to scale it to fit, or we can mask it out. You know the drill. I'm not going to show you how to do that because that's not why we are here. Maybe let's just blend it with the screen mode. That looks more like it's actually on the screen. And right now, we can put some text. Amazing. Script. Multi-cuber, get it now. Ta-da! Something like that. Add a shadow. drop shadow. Actually, I like to use radial shadow because it's sort of, it doesn't create this uniform looking shadow. It's quite nice. I usually decrease the projection distance to maybe 2 or something like that, and that way the shadow is irregular. So let's just bump up the softness to maybe 30 and increase the opacity. Okay, let's just leave it like that. And on top of everything else, since this was supposed to be animating, we're going to add maybe typewriter blinking cursor. We're going to get an error. Yes, I know, I haven't fixed that yet, so we just need to rename this typewriter if I recall. Sorry for this. Let's just see which expressions are broken. Here's one. Okay, now it's not. Amazing script, malty, cuber. Get it now. Okay, fantastic. That's exactly what we want. Very good. So let's just go back to our 3D screen. Make sure that these layers are three-dimensional layers, since we are collapsing things on top of collapsing things on top of collapsing things. These layers too need to be three-dimensional. So right now when we go to the screen, everything looks okay, and when we go to the final, everything looks okay. Or not. Okay, when that happens, it may be for a couple of reasons, and this is actually After Effects thing. It has nothing to do with my script, of course. However, the way to fix it, and that depends on what you're doing, is you can either nudge your layers a little bit to the front of the camera, and that will make them visible. However, it may also ruin the illusion that you're working with. So if that's not an option, then you don't have to put those layers into 3D. And by the way, if you don't make them 3D, this is how it may end up looking. And this is because the 3D screen by default assumes that this should be collapsed, and you just have to switch the collapse option off, and that way everything is just working perfectly. So we've got animated screen. We can of course open up and close the laptop as we wish. We can even animate the whole thing. So that's pretty cool. On top of that, I've got another laptop that is just made of a few simple PNG files, and this is a CG laptop this time. So let's just go through it once again without showing you all the pitfalls of collapsing multiple 3D layers that you just saw, and let's just do this again properly really quickly. You can even time me. So we're starting with the body front. Let's just put it over here. Let's just see how deep the cube should be, and we will know that from the keys. We have two versions. We've got either keys black or keys white. I think I'm gonna use keys white, and this is 1087. So making sure the layer is selected, clicking the button, 1087, okay. Switching to custom view because I just like to do it like that. Opening up, selecting scale, resetting the scale, that's cool, and going into the wall, and I can use body side to do that. And now this is my body back, which is identical to body front, so I can just put it in here. Here are my keys, so I'm going to use keys black, and this is my body bottom, which is exactly the same as the screen back. So I'm just going to use this layer for that, and that is my body. Let's take a look at the screen. Again, I've got a minimum amount of files that I need to do this, so I'm going to start with the body front again, and this time I'm going to do the screen. So this is my front, 1087, like that. So now selecting all the layers, selecting the scale parameter of the layers, resetting and replacing. This should be body front again because this is the back of the screen. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's how I build the files. This should be the side, so let's just put it on the side. This should be my screen back, and this should be my screen, which actually has a screen in it. Okay, and now I'm putting those two. This is my screen. This is my body. I'm putting those two inside of a new comp. Single composition, that's right. How tall is this? 69 pixels. Okay, so I can easily use that. So this composition, to make sense, should be 69 by 2. And again, body goes to the bottom. It doesn't have to, but it kind of makes sense. So anchor point, anchor point. This one goes to 69. This one goes to 0. The layers are aligned. Now I can just click the 3D switch on them and collapse transformations like that. The laptop has a depth of 1087, so now I need to put the anchor point in 1087 and 1087, and now move the position back by 1087 divided by 2, 1087 divided by 2, if I want to have things organized in the way I like them to be organized. And I can call this a 3D CG laptop like this. And again, I can go to my final comp, and in this case I can just simply replace it. And of course, let's just add our open close thing. So I'm going to open up my effects over here, and I'm going to go to my 3D CG laptop composition that I'm going to put over here just to see what I'm doing. Go back to the final, and here is my screen. Rotation, as you can see, it rotates in the correct direction. Great. Alt clicking, dragging to the open close, dragging to the open close, hitting enter. We can close it down and go back to the 3D laptop if we need to, and just write negative clamp this from 0 to 100, pink. We can go back to our final, and again, as you can see, we can open up and close our laptop. We can reorient it in any way we like. We can also scale it up and down and do all sorts of things with it. If it's too short, we can expand it. If it's too tall, we can shorten it. We can do all sorts of interesting stuff with it. So let me just reset this so it looks a little bit nicer. Transform, reset. We can scale it down. We can position it over here like this. Move it like that, and maybe open it up a little more and scale it down further. And again, move it over here. Amazing product. We can put the text on top like that. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. And here's our three-dimensional laptop, and that is multi-cuber. I think I showed you everything I wanted to show you. Well, probably not, but I think I've showed you enough. I hope you like the script, and I'm sure you will find it very, very useful. Once again, my name is malty. I hope you've enjoyed it. See you next time. Happy After Effecting.